Joining me today is Alex Mišković from Terra Balcanica Resources. In this interview, Alex breaks down for us how there are some massive deposits waiting to be found in both Serbia and Bosnia that are largely underexplored, and how Terra Balcanica plans to go create a catalog of data and go out whale hunting for a polymetallic resource. All right, everybody, enjoy the interview. Alex, thanks so much for joining us today.
Good afternoon and good morning to our Canadian viewers from Belgrade, Serbia.
Okay, so Alex, it's your first time with us. What can you tell us about your background and what ultimately brought you to running a Canadian junior company?
I'm a Canadian citizen of Serbian origin, immigrated to Canada as a teenage boy back in 1995 from what was then known as Yugoslavia. Now, obviously, the region is divided into a couple of different jurisdictions, countries. I lived in what is now known as Bosnia. So both Serbia and Bosnia are sort of where I come from, my neck of the woods. So after graduating from SFU and then moving on to Montreal to conduct my master's thesis, followed by PhD work at the University of Geneva and then back at MIT in Boston, I ended up working for Canadian federal government as a diamond geologist in Yellowknife, followed by a tenure at UBC for 4 years, where I was leading Mineral Deposit Research Unit, which is a subgroup of Ocean Sciences Department that concerns itself with mineral deposits. Its biggest project to date, and lo and behold, the area of investigation was exactly the Tethyan Belt, where we explore right now. So everything from Bosnia and Serbia through Greece and Turkey into the Caucasus. After moving to Montreal permanently from Vancouver in 2015, I started first working for Vancouver-based Junior Met Gold Resources, and was quite instrumental in terms of their locating their current primary asset in southeastern Serbia. So 700,000 ounces of gold equivalent deposit called Klamina. And after a brief tenure with Rio Tinto in California, I decided to initiate what was a land tenure that my partner and I have staked back in 2018. And that chunk of land in eastern Bosnia is what constitutes currently Terra Balcanica's primary asset in eastern Bosnia. So a long way around, I've kind of come back to the place of origin, or the crime scene, quote unquote, and then with the help of some people who have shared my vision. Initially, we commenced work 2 years ago, and right now are at the next level of our corporate development, and with some exciting things ahead of us.
Okay, so what can you tell us about mining in Bosnia and Serbia? What's the jurisdiction like, and ultimately why should it be attractive for Canadian junior investors?
Absolutely. So what couple of key things that I would like to highlight here. Ultimately, this is Europe. So infrastructurally, we are talking the level of comfort or ability to reach a certain area that is equivalent to what you would expect in Germany, France, Spain, or Switzerland. Roads are everywhere, 110 kilovolt power lines are all over the place. Railway lines are abundant and plenty. So in terms of infrastructure, the place is a typical European jurisdiction, or I should say both of these places are typical European jurisdictions. In addition to that, what attracted us primarily, it's not so much the infrastructure and presence of electricity and waterways and railways, but it's actually what I consider to be exceptionally well-endowed part of the world. This is part of the so-called Tethyan Belt, in particular Western Tethyan Belt, that stretches from Bosnia, let's say, to Turkey. And when you look, and obviously this belt continues on eastward into present-day Kazakhstan and turns around and goes down all the way to basically Australia. But when you look at the different segments of the Tethyan Belt, I would dare to say that the Western Tethyan Belt is the most well-endowed in terms of its ability to hold epithermal and porphyry style deposits anywhere along its strike length. This is, I mean, testament to this is recent discoveries in the region of basically tier one deposits, such as the Čukarupeki deposit that was discovered by Reservoir Minerals, later on acquired by Neptune, then ultimately purchased by Zijin, third largest Chinese mining corporation, as well as the fact that Rio Tinto has been exploring lithium in the region for the last 20 years or so, and developing their largest underground lithium deposit in the world. But also the fact that you have early movers and recent movers in the region, such as Adriatic Metals PLC and their Irish Silver Project, et cetera, et cetera. So I think a couple of keywords are equivalent to this tract of the belt and neck of the woods, and that's ability to really find tier one mining deposits, ability to rapidly develop those projects. I mean, I mentioned Adriatic Metal PLC. They have started their work in 2018. Within 4 years, they've managed to push that project, fast track it to the point where it's now actually in its definite feasibility study stage, and they're building a mine. Zijin acquired Neptune Resources for $1.86 billion Canadian. To me, that signals an opportunity. And then also much of the former Yugoslav landmass is really in the context of modern exploration techniques, relatively underexplored. At the same time, it's extremely well mapped. So we have that beautiful connection between well-mapped region that can be used by geologists when they do a standard prospecting job of boots on the ground. But at the same time, very few places have been drilled. Very few places have been flown over with airborne geophysics. Very few places have been systematically soil sampled. So that's exactly where we come in. I think Terra Balcanica, relative to its peers in the region, and there are lots of them, we do offer a bit of a competitive advantage, given the fact that most of the management, at least here locally sourced, speaks the language, understands the customs, and has a very strong regional experience, manifested by, in my case, 6-7 years of already having worked in the region, but also some other board members who are from Serbia or Bosnia, and exactly know the lay of the land, know how to acquire projects, how quickly to assess them, turn them over, and then move on.
Okay, so let's talk about Terra Balcanica. What minerals are you guys exploring for right now, and what stage are you guys at?
Yeah, so our primary focus is on the Eastern Bosnian flagship project called Vjugorzanik, where we are really, I mean, like I like to call it one district, but 6 different metals. And we truly have a basket, a plethora of metals, and like to see the Terra Balcanica as a multi-jurisdictional polymetallic explorer. In the Vjugorzanik, we have 3 different targets that we have identified after 18 months of painstaking, careful, systematic targeting work. One is a classical porphyry copper moly target. The other one is more of a set of targets, or a corridor, I would call it, that is more of a polymetallic epithermal vein-hosted deposit or prospect, which features lead, zinc, silver, gold, and antimony. And then the third target, which is basically entirely concealed or undercover, as we like to say it in a geological context, appears to be carrying hallmarks of a skarn, gold copper skarn deposit with a porphyry target underneath. So we have, what really excites me as a geologist and a geochemist, that we, within 15 kilometers of strike length, we have defined 3 different sets of targets, all carrying different metal assemblages and all being quite shallow to the surface. That's when it comes to Bosnia. When it comes to Serbia, which is the other part of our portfolio, we have 2 different properties. One is called Ceovište, the other one is called Kaludra. And in Kaludra, we have, again, an epithermal vein-hosted occurrence or a prospect, which shows very interesting superficial anomalies running up to 10-11% zinc on surface. That we have done some geophysical work last year over to identify additional drill targets, and that's more lead zinc silver prospect, whereas Ceovište is a classical gold, shallow, high grade gold, again epithermal quartz and arsenopyrite vein hosted prospect that's very shallow to the surface. So all of these things have one thing in common: they tend to be shallow, not much in terms of deep drilling. Offer a plethora of different metals that are both, some of them are obviously precious metals and hedges against uncertainty or inflation, whereas the other ones are very much geared towards the 4.0 energy or transition that we see taking place in the world. Things in big demand such as zinc, copper, and antimony.
Okay, so what do the next, say, 12 months look like for Terra Balcanica? Are there going to be drills in the ground?
Yeah, so actually we are at the moment in the process of completing our 1,850, close to 2,000 meter drill program, targeting all different zones on the Via Gorzanic. We will be issuing those assays as soon as they arrive, very shortly. And we're excited about the prospect of really completing that first pass of drilling and then following up with the subsequent drilling based on those results. So that's exactly what, when it comes to Via Gorzanic and Bosnia, this obviously comes on the heels of, as I mentioned, 18 to 20 months of very careful, systematic, science-based approach where we have layered multiple lines of evidence, such as soil geochemistry, rock chip geochemistry, structural mapping, airborne geophysics with two different types of techniques, electromagnetic and magnetic, to define those targets. So we're quite confident that the areas that we are targeting from a standpoint of where they are, how deep they are, we think we have a good control on them, and that's exactly, I think, what the current drilling will show. When it comes to Ceovište and Kaludra, we plan to attack those, for the lack of a better word, during the Q4 of this year and Q1 of next year. So that Ceovište shallow wall target will not require much work. We will maybe run a little bit of a ground magnetics over it, just to really narrow it down on the sweet spot and drill it right away. And Kaludra lead zinc silver also does not require any work, given the fact that last year, during the 2021, we have done a lot of groundwork, soil sampling, IP resistivity geophysics on the ground, and again the targets are ready for picking or for drilling.
Okay, so is there any historic drilling done on these properties, or are these going to be sort of the first, I don't know if you want to call them naked holes that have been put into the properties?
Right. So in terms of the Kaludra area and Ceovište in Serbia, where we have our Serbian portfolio, these are absolutely virgin. In other words, no drilling has been done. Other parts of these properties have been explored by other companies, but looking for different commodities. So there has been work done by a company called Euromax and First Quantum Metals, but they're all looking for porphyries. We are looking for different things, more of epithermal style mineralization. So therefore, our targets are completely new. When it comes to Via Gorzanic, Yugoslavs during the communist era have done fairly systematic exploratory work. This was state-sponsored, state-governed programs. So these are not private ventures or corporate undertakings. And some very shallow drilling occasionally was done here and there back in the 70s and early 80s. We do have access to those archival information. We have obviously incorporated them into our GIS models of the region and then corroborated with our own data. But in terms of any systematic deep drilling beyond superficial 100 meters or so, I must say that even Via Gorzanic, that has seen the most exploration, is basically very virgin. And I mean, Brezheny, one of our targets that we speak of in our deck that's available on our website, is entirely unknown. So not even Yugoslavs have recognized it at all. So this copper gold skarn with a porphyry target underneath, whereas the Chumovici and Olovine, these two other areas, as I mentioned, have seen some exploration, but again, nothing in terms of what you would consider systematic 21st century style exploration work.
All right, well, Alex, thanks so much for hopping on here today. Hopefully you'll come back on after we get some drill results and we can discuss them, and you can give us sort of a breakdown of what they mean for the company's exploration plans moving forward.
Thank you so much for your time, Steve, and I'll be glad to do so very soon.
All right, everybody, I hope you enjoyed the interview. And if you haven't already, please hit the like button, subscribe, and ring that notification bell. And let us know what you think in the comments section. All right. Thank you, everybody.